We wrestled with the idea of interrupting the evening for a program, but we felt there were certain things that really needed to be said. So I want to welcome all of you to Woodmont's 50th birthday bash. We were established in 1963. We have 5 members of our executive committee who are actually younger than the company. We hope you had a chance to watch our anniversary video. And when you see what Don Woodmont has accomplished over the past 50 years, I think it makes all of us feel really proud. You know the axis, the world is spinning right on the axis when good things happen to good people. And tonight, we're really not here just to celebrate Woodmont's 50th birthday, but we're really here to honor Don Woodmont, our chairman of the board. Oh, I'm sure he's not happy about that. Don Woodmont is about the most honorable, decent, and fun-loving guy/boss that anyone could ask for. And while he's known to love a bargain, his generosity with both his time and his resources are tremendous. On behalf of everybody here who's from Woodmont, let me say this. When you work for a company for 50 years that's done the right things, we feel a lot of pressure to keep up that reputation and the tradition that Donald has started and kept alive. I'm remembering back to our first corporate retreat 10 years ago, and we tried to pull together what Woodmont's core values should be for our business plan. And these are core values that came from Donald, as he didn't just pass them on to Eric and Michael, but really to all of us at the company. They included things like have a positive attitude, be a team player, and sweat the details, and most importantly at Woodmont, honor thy low bidder. Kidding, of course. At Woodmont, our most important core value is love the business. We love the real estate business. For us, it's a career and a hobby. You go to lunch with us, we're talking about deal structure, brick color, sheeting and shoring, topics that include things like my own personal favorite, bulk variances. But nobody loves the business of real estate more than Don Woodmont. He loves new deals. He really loves new deals. He also loves architecture, landscaping, construction, financing. Did I mention new deals? He has an absolute true passion for real estate. And for 2 points on the way in and 2 points on the way out, he even loves lending to developers who might not pay him back. In short, Don Woodmont is a walking epitome of a gentleman businessman. Shrewd enough to find great deals, skilled enough to make them work, and generous enough to share the wealth. He is a good friend, a great father, and a mentor to the entire Woodmont team. We've asked a few of our close friends to say a few words, not about the company, but more about Don. Barry Mandelbaum is one of Donald's oldest friends. Over the years, they've been involved in myriad deals sitting on literally every side of the table. Barry's not only a dean of the New Jersey Bar, he's a great friend to our company, providing guidance and advice while opening so many doors. Welcome, Barry Mandelbaum.
Hi, everybody. Eric asked me to say a few words tonight, and it's really not about so much the 50th celebration, but about Donald, who I've known for more than 35 years. As you know, this company started over 50 years ago, and my remarks will be primarily addressed to Donald Woodmont. Only someone as lovable as Donald and his friends and colleagues and business associates would have so many nicknames as Donald. Originally, he was named, when I first met him, by Bob Goldberg as the Duckster. Then, when our friend across the river, Donald Trump, in 1990 started having trouble, and there were stories about him going bankrupt, our friend Donald became the Donald, the real Donald, okay? So now you know where he stands in our geography in New Jersey in terms of developers. This was the Donald, not the guy across the river. Then one day we went out west with Donald, with Jerry Cord, and all of a sudden he became Cowboy Don. The man went out, he roped cattle, he sat high on a horse, he had a white hat, and he was magnificent. Then one day we went to the Galapagos Islands. And as things would happen, they divide you up in small groups to go in these little zodiacs to go to visit the little islands that the big boat can't get to. So they name each boat or each group after a well-known indigenous bird in the Galapagos. So our group became, after one look at Donald, the boobies. We were the blue-footed boobies. And after looking at Donald, he became the captain of the blue-footed boobies. And today, whenever he calls the office, my receptionist says, the captain is on the phone. So, any event, that's Donald's nicknames. Now, let me tell you something about him as a real estate guy, because I've known him 35 years in the real estate business. And Donald and his company, as you know, have survived 3 major recessions that those of us in the real estate business are aware of. We had a recession in the late 70s. We had one in the late 80s and going into the 90s. And of course, we all know about the recession we have today. And who knows whether we finally are out of it. But Donald has managed to survive those 3 recessions and done very well doing it. But how did he manage to do it? Let me tell you some stories about how he managed to do it. He is extremely, extremely careful. I first met Donald in 1975, actually on the other side of the table when he was selling a motel on Route 1 with his brother-in-law, Arthur Levy, who's here, to a group of people who didn't really know much about the motel business. And they looked to Donald to explain the motel business. And the one thing that concerned them, because of the nature of the motel, it was an all-cash business. Some people call it a hot pillow type place. So in any event, Donald explained how he handled to make sure that the people in the front desk who got the cash handled the cash. So I couldn't believe what he told them. He said, on Saturdays in the evening, like about 1 in the morning, I go to the motel. And you go to the motel? They said, yes. I go to the motel, but the guy in the front desk doesn't know I'm there. And there's a big picture window in front of the desk. And I hide out in the bushes, I hide out behind cars, and I got binoculars, and I watch for an hour or 2. And just to make sure that the cash is going into the drawer. So that's our careful Donald. So, okay, so that's one thing. The next thing is that Donald is a frugal person. Donald is frugal. One day, Donald and Lois and my wife and me decided we'd go up skiing in Vermont. So we get in Donald's car, and all of a sudden there's a red light on, and it shows red. The oil's needed. I said, Donald, we need oil. He says, no, we don't need any oil. And oil, you know what the price of a quart of oil is? So off we set up to go to Vermont. Meanwhile, the poor car, it's wheezing, it's coughing, and it's almost saying, I need oil, please give me oil. Donald said, don't pay any attention to it. We get into Bennington, Vermont, and I said, Donald, let's stop for oil. We get out of the car, and everybody's holding their nose. And I say, Donald, why is everybody holding their nose? Everybody thinks it's an emission of noxious fumes from a nearby factory. In fact, it was Donald's car. Now, Donald is also extremely ambitious, and we all know about his ambition. And when he was with, his first company was called Associated Sales. So one day, Donald believes that there's a fellow by the name of Steve Atkins, and his sons are here tonight, who wants to sell an office building. Well, Donald is so anxious to get to Steve Atkins to sign him up that he gets to Steve's house, and he comes through the backyard, and he sees Steve sitting there in his nice sunroom. Donald forgets that there's a patio door that you have to open. Right through the patio door, he goes. Now that's a guy who's ambitious. Now those are all true stories about Donald. All right, well, enough of telling you about that about Donald. I want to tell you about some of his best attributes and his attitudes, okay? These are the adjectives that I think best describe Donald. He has integrity, he's hardworking, he's careful, he's dependable, he's insightful, he's humorous, he's perceptive, he's honest, and of course, we all know, fiscally conservative. These are the exact traits he has successfully passed on to Eric, who is now the CEO of the company and is successful in his own rights. Now, the first year I met Donald, and I became a little bit more than an adversary on the other side of the table, he came down to see me, and he said to me, Barry, he said, I really went overboard this year. He said, I bought 25 umbrellas to give out to clients and friends. And believe it or not, these umbrellas are imprinted with my logo. He says, but yours is very, very special. He said, if you ever have any troubles, any anxieties, any things that are bad for you, open the umbrella, and this umbrella will shield you from all of your troubles. And for 35 years, the same umbrella has been in my office, and it has done that. So on this 50th anniversary, I'd like to call Don up and give him back his umbrella and hope that it will shield him from the same troubles and anxieties that have protected me. So come on up, Donald. And you can see it is still imprinted, and I'll open it up. Associated Sales, where it all began. So there you are, Donald. Okay.
Good job. We ordered a flyover for Donald. Barry told you about his trip with Donald horseback riding, but what he didn't tell you is Donald has this great picture in his office of Barry and Donald on horses in leather chaps. We call it Brokeback Real Estate Developer. Next, before I introduce the next person who's going to share a few thoughts, I want to just tell you a real quick story. When I was a young guy, a good friend of mine here tonight was Richard Mandelbaum. And we were friendly with Eric back in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. And Eric went to a different elementary school, rival elementary school, and we used to play football in Richard's backyard. So one day we all show up to play football, and David Mandelbaum comes out and he goes, come on guys, get in the car. And we said, well, where are we going? What are we doing? He said, we got a football game to play. So we pile in David's car, and he takes us over to Don's house, and we get out of the car, and waiting there are Eric and his friends from the rival elementary school. But the best part is that David was the steady quarterback for our team, and Donald was the steady quarterback for Burnett Hill team. So, needless to say, Donald let us win, so we appreciated that. But just taking that relationship all the way back, I mean, I think, frankly, in our business, when you say that David Mandelbaum invests with you, that's a badge of honor. And Donald not only has that, but he gets to call David Mandelbaum a friend. So we asked David Mandelbaum to say a few things today.
Thank you. I go back with Donald more than the 50 years. I go back as far as when he was with Kislak. And I remember when he left Kislak, and it was a great move because he then went on his own. However, on the way out of Kislak, they loved him so much that one of the Kislaks threatened to beat him up. And I'm certain he made a great impression on him. But the story that Barry told is really a story that's a legend in the real estate industry, and that is Donald walking through plate glass to make a deal. And it's true, that's how he is. We travel with Donald, the same as Barry. We have business with Donald. But what I'm proud of is the fact that in the next generation, Eric and my son Richard are friends. And now in the next generation after that, their kids are friends. Somebody asked me to sum up Donald in one word, and I think you'll all recognize the word thrifty. So thank you, God bless.
Just a couple more folks who want to say a few things. Woodmont currently has over 70 employees between our headquarters, our construction division, and our management division. And one employee has been with the company for half of its 50 years. Sometimes we refer to him, or we're not sure if he's actually Donald's younger brother or Donald's oldest son. But Louis Lotnick is our president, and he's managed for years every department we have.
I could reach the mic. When I started, I was 6'6". I want to thank everyone for coming this evening. It's an absolutely fantastic venue. You couldn't have asked for a nicer sunset. So thank you all for coming. Before I tell you a couple of stories about Don, I just wanted to thank the people on the committee who were responsible for helping create this wonderful event. And that's our committee with Drita Christ, Steve Santola, Michael Woodmont, Michelle Cable, and Beth Fink, our party planner. Thank you all very much. I was first introduced to Donald in 1988 by my rabbi, or my guardian angel. I'll call my rabbi since we're at Mountain Ridge, and that's Barry Mandelbaum. Barry Mandelbaum and I were finishing a project, and Barry wanted to introduce us to think that there was possibly a good connection with Donald. So I went to Donald's office, and Donald decided to take me out to lunch at some fancy restaurant called Bennigan's to make a good impression on Lieutenant. And we were driving in his Jeep, his Woody Jeep, and we were driving down Jefferson Road. I'll never forget, Donald was trying to communicate both by, he had one of the first mobile phones, and he had a radio going, and he was able to try and talk them both at the same time while driving with his knees. So I basically pulled every muscle in my body, stepping on the passenger side brakes, trying to stop the car from going in the ditch on the side of the road. So we get to Bennigan's, and I tried to eat, but Donald was just drilling me with questions. Donald loves to know about people, and he was just drilling me with questions. And I didn't feel so bad that I didn't eat because he was basically picking from my plate while I was answering the questions. But then the lunch didn't go so well because when he started to negotiate with the waitress for the check, the conversation started to slow down. And he offered to split the bill with me, but I really resented the idea that I had to pay the tip because he drove and paid for the gas. So I called Barry and I said, Barry, I'm going to just do things on my own, not for me. And luckily, Barry was there and we did the next deal together, and that didn't go so well. So the prince came to the rescue, and in 1992, Don bought a couple of lots from us, and I became a merchant builder for Don. And I learned all kinds of interesting things like how to get subcontractors to pay you, and it was a wonderful learning experience for me. When we finished that project, Don said to me, what are you going to do now? I said, well, I'll probably go out on my own and start building again. And he said, well, why don't you come work for me? And I said, Don, if in 6 months from now, an opportunity comes along and I want to go somewhere else. He says, look, we're all adults here. You have another opportunity.